Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. First, we'll pay our respect to our teacher, Most Venerable Kiribati Jnanananda Thero, Pingat Loku Swamin Wahanse, for teaching us this supreme Dhamma. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Now, Buddha, so how many participants are there? So all of you switch on your cameras. Okay. So today also we'll be learning a sutta. So the name of this sutta is Baddhiya Sutta. The name is Baddhiya Sutta. So this sutta is found in the Anguttara Nikaya, that is the numerical discourses of the Buddha, in the great chapter, in the Anguttara Nikaya, the book of the force. And in this sutta we learn some interesting Dharma points which will definitely help us to lead a better life by abandoning the defilements that pollute our mind. So Buddha used to travel often between the Magadha country, the kingdom of Magadha, and the kingdom of Savatthi, Magadha and Savatthi, in the kingdom of Kosala. So in between there is the city of Vesali. So last week when we discussed Hatana Sutta, we learned about the incident, the 3 calamities that was there in the Vesali, and how Buddha chanted the Ratana Sutta to free the people from that peril. So in one of these journeys of the Buddha from the kingdom of Magadha to that of Kosala, he rested in a certain hall in Vesali. That is when this Baddhiya, Lichavi, so the kingdom of Vesali is ruled by a confederate, the Lichavis. So a Lichavi by the name Baddhiya, approached the Buddha, and there was a conversation between the Buddha and this Lichavi, the Baddhiya, and that is what we discuss in this sutta. So this is how it begins. So on one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Vesali, in the hall with the peak roof of the great woods. So there was this hall in the great woods with a peaked roof. That is where the Buddha was residing at that time. That is when this Baddhiya, the Lichavi, approached the Buddha, paid homage to him, and sat down to one side. And then he says, Bhante, I have heard this. The ascetic Gautama is a magician who knows the converting magic by which he converts the disciples of teachers of other sects. So what had he heard? He had heard of the Buddha. He had heard he was a magician who converts ascetics and Brahmins from other religions to Buddhism. That's what he had heard of the Buddha. So he says, Bhante, then he says, goes on to say, do those who speak thus, those who speak in this way, he asked the Buddha, do those who speak thus state what has been said by the Blessed One and not misrepresent him with what is contrary to the fact? Do they explain in accordance with the Dhamma so that they do not incur any reasonable criticism or ground for censure? For we do not want to misrepresent the Blessed One. So he wanted to know for himself whether it was true or whether it's a false accusation. So he is wise in the sense he is not just believing what he heard. Rather, he wants to know the truth. That is why he himself approached the Buddha and asked, they say so that you are a magician and you convert disciples of other teachers into your doctrine, your teaching, your way of life, the practice. I don't want to accuse you in wrong. Therefore, I want to know from you whether this is true or not. That is why he approached the Buddha and raised this question to the Buddha himself. So then Buddha doesn't give a direct answer. Rather, he approaches this in a very wise manner. So it clearly exemplifies the wisdom of the Buddha and how he tackles certain situations in a way sort of enlightens the person. So Buddha says, see, he changes the topic. He says, come Baddhiya. He addresses it in a way that's indirect. He said, come Baddhiya, do not go by what you have heard from others. That's what had happened now. He had heard this from someone else. So he says, come Baddhiya, do not go by what you have heard from others. Do not go by lineage of teaching. So these are, Buddha talks about 10 methods by which people arrive at certain views, certain ideas, acquire knowledge. So how people acquire information. There are these 10 ways. And then they arrive at decision, they jump to conclusions. So Buddha says, come Baddhiya, do not go by what you have heard from others. That is one way we conclude certain things. We hear from someone else, then we make a decision. Then by lineage of teaching, this is what that was taught to us by our teachers. And then we readily accept it. Then Buddha said, come Baddhiya, do not go by hearsay. What is hearsay? Gossips, rumors. You hear someone say, and then you just believe it. That's what you heard. You take it as it is and you believe in it. Buddha said, come, but do not go by that way. That is also wrong. Buddha said, don't do that. Then Buddha says, do not go by what's in the books. Just because it's in the books, don't believe it, Buddha says. This is what is in our books. This is what we believe. That's how it is in the scriptures. That alone, that like the blind faith, just believing, that is not something Buddha encourages. So then Buddha says, do not go by logical reasoning. So if you think, oh, this makes sense, there's logic here, and don't believe on that grounds alone, said the Buddha. Then Buddha says, come, but you do not go by inferential reasoning. You might think, okay, if this is so, this can happen. Like you have this train of thoughts and you think if this or this can happen, contemplate upon it, then you think, okay, that is something that can happen when you consider these and these factors, that is possible. And you might arrive at a conclusion. Buddha say, don't do that. So then Buddha say, by reason, by reason, cogitation. Like you think of something and if it suits your view, then you accept it. You think of it, that view is something I can agree with. So if the views matches, if there is some cogitation there, then you accept it. Would say don't do that either. Then he says, do not go by the acceptance of a view after pondering it. You hear a view and then you think of it, contemplate upon it, then you accept it. Don't do that either, would say. Do not go by the mere fact that he is your teacher. Just because your teacher tells you this so and so, you don't have to accept that. You don't have to believe in it just like that. So then Buddha tells you how to actually do it. That's what you learn in the sutta. So then Buddha goes on to say, but when you know for yourself, Baddhiya, that these things are unwholesome, these things are blameworthy and wrong, these things are condemned or censored by the wise, these things, if accepted and undertaken, lead to harm and suffering. So these are the deciding factors. Then only you should abandon them. What are things you should consider? You should consider whether these things are unwholesome, whether they are blameworthy or they are wrong, whether they are condemned by the wise, and if you undertake these things, if you take up these things, whether it leads to harm and suffering. So those things you have to take into consideration, said the Buddha. Then, what do you think, Baddhiya? Buddha asks, when greed arises in a person, is it for his welfare or for his harm? The first question Buddha raises, what if greed arises within you? Is it good for you or bad? Then Baddhiya answers, it is for my harm. Bhante, Venerable Sir, it will indeed harm you. Then Buddha says, Baddhiya, a greedy person, overcome by greed with mind, obsessed by it, destroys life. Take what is not given, transgresses with another's wife, and speaks falsehood. And he encourages others to do likewise. So what happens when greed arises in a person? When a person is obsessed with greed, he kills living beings. He steals. He engages in sexual misconduct. What else does he do? Sexual misconduct and falsehood. He tells lies and also encourage others to do so. That's what happens when you become greedy, when you're overwhelmed with greed. So you see, like, first it is your mind that is polluted, then your actions, your bodily actions, your verbal actions, they are also polluted. So here Buddha says, you have to understand that greed is an unwholesome state of the mind. And because of this unwholesome state, once the mind is overcome by greed, you will commit these acts. That can happen, that does happen. So now think of this, now you learn something, the Dhamma. And now the application of it. Now you have to contemplate and apply it to your life and see whether it's true. What happens now? Think of the Israel and Palestine conflict. Isn't that because of greed? Greed for what? They are fighting for land.
And
So see how much people suffering, how much suffering it has caused for many years, for many people. Why? Because they are overcome with greed. They are killing each other, looting. All this is happen. Why? Because their minds are overcome by greed. Because they are fighting for land. Of course, the religious aspect also is there. But still, what is the bottom line? They are fighting for land. So greed is the defilement that controls them. And there is so much of suffering for themselves and the world at large. That is how greed can harm you. It is not for your welfare. Then, so in this way, people kill because of greed, no? Then think of wet markets. Are you familiar with wet markets? You go to wet markets where you have this greed for food, various food, meat. So once you go to wet market, they are livestock, like they are alive, not meat. So when you ask for a certain, say, animal, they kill it then and there. Then it is served to you. There are restaurants where you go and pick the food for you. So they have maybe fish, maybe crabs. So you're actually ordering for that animal to be killed. Why? Because your mind is obsessed by what? The greed for taste, the food. And then that animal is killed at your will because there is a direct. Now, if you go to a place and if it's meat, you buy meat, that's okay. In these places, in restaurants or in wet markets where there are animals are alive and they are killed upon your request, then that is breaking the precept. So this happens why? Because of greed. Then what else? Now you can come up with similar examples for this. What happens? What bad things people do when their mind is overcome with greed?
they
Anyone
steal.
else? Can someone say?
Bante, they steal. They want
Sorry?
other. For example, they want other people's property because they're greed, and so they steal.
Yeah, that's one thing. That's good point. What else?
Telling some people telling lies in order to gain more money. Sometimes when they're doing business deals, they're telling lies.
But I couldn't hear. Like the sound is very. I don't know why the output is. I can't hear you as much as clearly as I can. You can hear me. I think. Can you speak up? I
Hopefully
don't know what's the
this is
difference.
better, Nancy. Hopefully this is better.
Huh?
Can you hear me, Nancy?
Yeah, that's okay now.
Yeah, I was saying some people choose to tell lies in order to gain more money through like business deals and things like that. So because of a greedy mind, they manipulate them or tell lies to get more a better deal or money.
Yeah, that's a good point. So likewise, they are overcome by these defilements and they commit bad acts. So I heard that there was, I think in USA, there was an incident where a 14-year-old and 12-year-old sisters, they killed their mother because their mother took their phones away. See, simple thing like that, to kill their own mother. This happened. Why? The greed, the attachment to the mobile phone, and they hit her body. behind the car so that no one would see. That's 14 years and 12 years old. And in India, there was a similar case where, like in India, a young man killed his mother because she didn't facilitate his marriage. So he wanted to marry as soon as possible, and the mother was not as eager to let go of him, it seems. So he bludgeoned her to death with a spade. Greed for lust, greed for, so that is there, the desire. When you are overcome by desire, you commit these evil deeds. And as we said, there's the armed robberies. You steal, you kill, you steal. And in Sri Lanka, you know, that's what they go, they there you take banks, you loot from banks. So the bank robberies, they you kill and then you steal. And in Sri Lanka, we have like walking fences, like people, they at night they move the fences. Over time, they gradually acquire more ground. Like when you have your piece of land, then you encroach other lands as well, thinking that the other person would not notice. Of course, he notices. Then there are disputes. Then they go to court and they drag along for many years and they die even before it is settled. All this happens because what? Because of greed. So it is clear, like in this way, these defilements harm yourself and others as well. And then we know of what else. Because of greed, people try to acquire money by wrongful means, like internet scams, email scams. These are ways of getting money from people by wrongful means. Stealing. Why? Because of greed, that unwholesome state. So, what about sexual misconduct? That happens a lot, no? Because then people are not satisfied with their partner. They go after other, they find lovers, illicit partners. And in this way, they are overwhelmed by their lust, their desire, the greed. So we understand, we can clearly see that these defilements, they doesn't do any good for yourself and also the community. So then when it comes to sexual misconduct, there are the abnormal sexual activity, like it is where it's beyond the accepted norms of the society. So like homosexuality, bisexuality, then sadistic sex, and also like in the case of marriage, there is open marriage. Likewise, all these things are what? Why do these things happen? Because there is greed. Their mind is obsessed with greed. And they do these things. They engage in sexual misconduct. And of course, they speak falsely, tell lies because of greed. Because by lying, you can get certain things. Sometimes you are rewarded when you lie. So you can give account of, like, you can present yourself as a witness for a case, and they pay you money to lie as a witness. This can happen. So this does happen. So why? Because of greed, you want the money, you are ready to lie. So like I say, it's clear that when your mind is overcome by greed, then you make a lot of harm for yourself and also the society at large. So and then you encourage others to also engage in killing living beings, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying. You encourage that, you promote that. When you are overwhelmed with greed, this happens. Then Buddha asks, what do you think, Baddhiya? Does this in this way, these actions you do by body, speech, and mind, once you are overcome by greed, does it lead to suffering for a long time? What do you think? It's clear, no? He says, yes, Bhante, yes, Venerable Sir. It does lead to a lot of suffering when you are overwhelmed with greed. Then Buddha says, what do you think, Baddhiya, when hatred arises in a person? Is it for his welfare, for his harm? Then Baddhiya says, it doesn't do any good. It will definitely harm you. Then Buddha says, Baddhiya, a hateful person, overcome by hate, with mind obsessed by it, destroys life, take what is not given, transgresses with another's wife, and speaks falsehood. And he encourages others to do likewise. So then again, when your mind is overcome by hatred, anger, what do? You kill living beings. You take others' life. All the wars we have witnessed in this world is because of what? This unwholesome state of the mind. Hatred. That is why people are at war in this world. Certain factions, certain gangs. Because of what? Because of hatred. Because they despise each other. That is why there is such thing as war in this world, because of hate. And hatred causes violence in so many levels. Within families, within societies, within countries. There's violence because of what? Hatred. And like so, there are instances where some people are jealous when you see a family living a good life, a harmonious life, a happy life. When you see a good couple, then some people are jealous of that. They hate seeing them enjoy life, and they would try to break them up by enticing them to have an affair with someone else. These things happen. Why? Because of hatred. People do these things to harm others. So in this way, once their mind is obsessed with hatred, they do these actions, evil actions by body, speech, and mind. And hatred causes you to steal. Because you don't want that person like you hate to flourish. So then you try to rob him of his things. So that happens. So you steal. Then there are instances when you engage in sexual misconduct because of hate. If you want to break up certain relationship, you might begin an affair with the person, the other party. Why? Because of hate is there. You want them to fight. You want them to have discontent. You don't like them seeing them being happy. That is also because of what? Hatred. In this way, hatred consumes your mind. And therefore, you cause suffering for yourself and others as well. And there is a case in the time of the Buddha. You see how people lie because of hate. That there are certain monks who went for alms. So it turns out that he had like rather long fingernails. So the lady saw the monk who was going for alms, and he invited him to have sexual relationship with her. But the monk said, I can't do that. I'm a monk. It's not allowed for us to engage in sexual activity. So he refused. Then she got upset, she got angry. She said, okay, I will make you pay. So what she did was she scratched her limbs with her own fingernails and she screamed out, I've been wronged by this monk. He attacked me, tried to rape me. So she's lying. So to get back at that monk. So people came running, caught the monk, and when they inspected the monk, you could see like there was no blood on the fingernails of the monk. So, but then they checked the lady's fingers and they found blood to be in her fingers and know that she was lying. Therefore, fortunately, the monk was freed and he was not harmed. But thereafter, Buddha said you should not grow your fingernails. You should always keep them trimmed. Should cut them short, Buddha said. Because why? People lie. People lie when they are overcome with hatred. Because he was hateful towards the monk because he turned down her invitation to have sex. This happened in the time of the Buddha. And I know, I have heard of an incident in Sri Lanka. You know, there are good cops and there are bad cops. So sometimes then you do a small, say like you say, when you are driving, you make small mistakes, and then they would write you down like they are supposed to fine you. Instead, they would rather have you pocket out some money on their behalf, so then they would let you go. And in this instance, this person, he was not ready to pay the cop. So he, in that instance, what he did was to make him suffer. He put some drugs in that person's vehicle, and then he said he confiscated the gun while the drugs while it was in his possession. A false accusation, and he was put in jail for many years. So this person later on, when someone went to the you sometimes you get to talk with these people in jail, then he say like I am here, but I have not done anything wrong. This is what actually happened to me. These things happen. Why? Because of hate. People lie to harm others because of hate. So then, because of hate, you also speak divisively. If you want to break up friendships with a person, then you tell lies of that person. If you want to disparage person, then you would still lie, talk bad things about that people, but still they are lies. And when you are overcome with anger, you speak harshly. Okay, all this happens why? Because your mind is defiled. So hatred causes us to do all these things. I remember like when we were schooling, there was one boy, like I don't know whether it's hate or so he didn't like he would study well at home. But when he's class, he's always disrupting the studies of others. He's never silent. So like in this way, he harbored some jealousy or hate towards he didn't want others to do good, basically. Whereas he was studying at home, committed to passing the exam. He passed the O levels, but he failed the advanced levels. Why? Because there's also karma also. So these things happen. Why hate, jealousy, when your mind is defiled. So in this way, Buddha questions Baddhiya and Buddha make him realize for himself how these defilements causes harm. So then Buddha asks him, will this hate lead to harm and suffering for her a long time? Then Baddhiya agrees, yes, but definitely in this way, hatred does cause harm, great harm and suffering for a long time to come. Then Buddha asks, What do you think, Baddhiya? When delusion arises in a person, is it for his welfare or harm? What do you think? When delusion arises, Buddha says, Baddhiya says, for his harm, Bante. Definitely, delusion would also harm the person. Buddha says, but the deluded person, overcome by delusion, with his mind obsessed by it, destroys life, takes what is not given, engages in sexual misconduct and lies, and also promotes this, encourage others to do likewise. So this happens when you are overwhelmed with delusion. That delusion is you take up wrong views. You believe in something that is not true. And because of that deluded state, by taking up the wrong view, you do evil deeds. You know that military general, like who's like his name was, I think, Bhaktiyar Khalji. He is the one who set fire to the Nalanda University in India. A Muslim general, when they invaded in their conquest of the Indian, Eastern Indian regions, they came to India, and this person, he is the one who tapped all the monks. They were having a dan at that time. I think it says thousands of monks were burnt alive, and thousands more were beheaded by this person. Why? For them, these are infidels or people that are enemies. Because why? They are of another faith. So, in the the library of Nalanda, all the scriptures, the books were set on fire, and it is said for 3 months it continued to burn. So, think how huge a library it was. The knowledge that was there, all that was destroyed. Why? Because of delusion. Because they believe in a wrong view. Because in their religion, you are supposed to kill the disbelievers, the infidels. These are what? Wrong views. So they ransacked and looted the Nalanda University and killed the monks, destroyed everything. He was a Turco-Afghan military general, a Muslim general. So, like in this say, in this world, more people have died because of this promotion of religions rather than wars. Comparatively, even more than wars, because people trying to promote their own religions at the cost of the lives of others by killing, by shedding blood. They try to promote religion. So likewise, this is why, because they have taken up a wrong view, because they are deluded, they kill and they steal what belongs to them, and they claim ownership of land that is not actually there. They are not the rightful owners, but they steal because of their delusion. And then they engage in sexual misconduct. They rape the women, these people. So they do all this because why? Trying to promote religions, because they have taken up a wrong view. So we are very fortunate, lucky to learn the teachings of the Buddha and to have come across the truth, where most of the people in the world are in dark. So when ascetics and Brahmins of other regions, like in the time of the Buddha, so because of the Buddha's Dhamma propagation, many were pleased of the Buddha's teaching. Buddha acquired a lot of gain and honor, fame and praise. So, and because of that, the gain and honor and fame and praise of the other sects, it diminished, and they were very angry towards the Buddha because this was happening. They were losing their followers. They didn't care for them likewise. They therefore they were very angry. They very hateful towards the Buddha and his disciples. So they made false accusations. They lied, just like they had spread rumors in this case, like accusing the Buddha of being a magician. There was a case like in one instance in a sutta it says there that a person comes, he's a young man, he also comes to Buddha and say, Buddha, I heard such a thing of the Buddha that you say that you should give alms only to the Buddha, not to any other teacher, any of other religions. Only to the monks we should give. We should not give to anyone, any other disciples of any other religions. It is only when you give to the Buddha that you reap the most benefits. Not when you give to anyone else. It is only when you give to the Sangha you reap the most benefits, not when you give to others. Likewise, you say so this. Say something like this. So this young man also, why he didn't believe in this, he rather wanted to know for himself. Then Buddha says, I don't anytime tell anyone not to give. About giving, what I have told is like even the water you cast after washing the bowl where there had been food. So when you cast, there are food particles in the water mixed. So if you cast even that water, thinking, having the thoughts of loving kindness, may some small insect, small creature uh, feed on this. Then you gain merits by that. It's also giving, sharing. And but in my case, Buddha said, so why should I oppose to giving to humans? If I encourage giving to animals even in such a way, then why would I oppose giving to humans, Buddha said. So, but I do say this, like I praise when you give to the virtuous. And then he gradually goes on to say it is the arahants who are the most worthy ones to be offered certain things. That is when you reap the most benefits. Likewise, they in this way they spread rumors, lies about the Buddha, his teachings, and the disciples. Because why? Because because they believe they had the wrong view and they didn't believe in the teachings. They did that. There was hate towards the Buddha. So there was also, Nigantanatha Buddha. Nigantanatha Buddha, he didn't, he always encouraged to be vegetarian likewise. And when he had the disciple named Siha, one of his disciples, and Siha once went to the Buddha, heard his teaching, and he gave up the Nigantanatha Buddha's religion and became Buddhist. And the very next day, he ordered the Buddha and the Sangha of monks to come to his house for lunch. And he cooked some meat, bought meat from the stall and cooked it for the Buddha and the Sangha. And Nigantanatha Buddha spread the word around the city. The Buddha has made the seer, the master, he was a master seer, kill a live animal and now he's eating that meat without any regret or remorse. How shameful is this act? Like he was lying in this way, spreading false rumors. Why? Because his one of his disciples had given up his religion and become a Buddhist. There was anger, hatred, and also the delusion, believe in the wrong view. But Siya didn't care. Siya said that is the nature of the Nigantanathas, Buddha and his group of people. That's what they've been doing all their life, thus disparaging the Buddha and the disciples in vain. So in this way, we say that even this uh, delusion, when your mind is overcome with delusion, causes much suffering and harm for a long time. So then now we learn greed, hatred, delusion. When your mind is obsessed, overcome, overwhelmed by these defilements, you kill living beings, steal, engage in sexual misconduct, speak falsely, All this happens, and you then promote evil, and you overcome with these defilements. Then Buddha says, what do you think, Baddhiya? When vengeance arises in a person, is it for his welfare or for his harm? What is vengeance? Vengeance is the desire to exact revenge. That is vengeance. We say eye for an eye, blow for a blow, tit for tat, like payback, whatever that. What is that? Vengeance. So vengeance is a defilement. So then Buddha says, ask him, but the vengeful person, Buddha says, overcome with mind, obsessed by vengeance, then he kills living beings, steals, engages in sexual misconduct, and lies. So how do you kill when there's vengeance? Okay, that happens a lot, I think, no? With vengeance, try to get back at certain people. Say someone, say accidentally or somehow kills a person, a loved one of yours, and people then take law into their own hands and kill that person. On many instances, this has happened. There was a very tragic incident I remember, like two flights, a Russian flight and a DHL, DHL, like cargo jet, I think they crashed in mid-air, a mid-air collision. So it was like then one of the, like that Russian plane was full of its children, like more than 300 children, and all the lives were lost. There were children and adults, but most of them were children because it was a special flight taking some children on a vacation, and all those lives were lost. And one of the parents who lost his daughter and son and wife blamed the flight controller at that moment for the accident, because the flight controller that day, he was like, normally you work with a partner. He had left his station, so he was handling two stations. And on top of that, some people had come for maintenance at that day. So he didn't have radar. So he had the equipment, but they were not working at that moment. There was a maintenance. So he was coping to give real time notice. Like he was facing trouble giving real time notice to the flights. When then two flights are in a collision course, you ask one flight to change the altitude. So he could not give this message. He was late in the giving the message. At the last moment, he asked one pilot to climb. But at that moment, the flights are too close. When the flights get close, then the computers in the airplanes, they give advice on their own, like you are supposed to dive or climb, because there is a onboard system that also gives. Then you have to think between, you have to choose between what the flight controller is saying and the computer is saying. It's the last moment, and they both descended while you were supposed to climb. The both flights descended and they collided. So it was then the parent thought the flight controller was to blame, but he was not, because he was handicapped that day, because the equipment was not working properly. So this parent, he wanted his vengeance. He tracked him down to his house in Switzerland and killed that person, the flight controller, an innocent person who himself had children, a wife, a family. But that person wanted payback, retribution. That was his way of getting it. But does that bring back the lives that were lost? No. Were him in fact to be blamed? No. It was a tragedy. and even more tragic thing. He also lost his life. So this happens why? Because of vengeance, the desire to exact revenge. And there are instances in a family, like say in a relationship, it happens. Like when you see your partner, your husband and wife, like taking it lightly, talking to with other people, then you would also try to do the same to get back at her or him. If you see him engaging in like flirting with someone else, then you would also flirt. If he is having a relationship out of the marriage, then you would do the same. Why? Vengeance. The desire to accept revenge, to get back, pay back. So this is a very slight. It's sometimes like it is very difficult because it is very subtle. This aspect, this how vengeance comes up in our mind, how it crops up in his mind, because it's very subtle. We might not see that because our first reaction to any situation, someone asks you, you ask for help from someone, and when he refuses, what the first thing comes to your mind? Okay, when he needs help from me, I will do the same. I will not help him. It's very subtle. So if you are not mindful, you might not catch this arise in your mind. That is the first reaction normally we get. If we get hurt, there's the feeling, okay, I will do something similar to hurt that person. It's like automated. So then you have to be very mindful to see how see this defilement arise in your mind, because that is something that is going to make you suffer. And arrogance is something that fuels vengeance. Because if you are a person who is arrogant, if you are not humble, you quickly feel like you are ill-treated, and you feel that I should not be talked to in this way. I should not be treated in this way. Why? Because you are not a humble person. Then you will try to get back, try to harm that person. Then you become a vengeful person because of your arrogance. So that is also something we should be mindful. A humble person always, he gives up, he let go. Don't cling to these things. Because we all has this self-view and we think, okay, he did this to me, he called me like this, he spoke to me in this way, likewise. Then you try to retaliate. Then that is hatred, then that becomes vengeance. So that is a defilement. So Buddha says, what do you think about then in this way we learn 4 things: greed, hatred, delusion, and vengeance. All of these are defilements that arises in my mind that we should abandon because they cause harm. Buddha then asks, what do you think about are these things wholesome or unwholesome? What do you think? These are all unwholesome. Baddhiya agrees. Baddhiya says unwholesome, Baddhiya. Blameworthy or blameless? They are blameworthy, Bhante, he says. Censored or praised by the wise? These are things that are condemned by the wise. Censored by the wise, Bhante. Accepted and undertaken, do they lead to harm and suffering or not?
Yes.
They do lead to harm and suffering, says. But the accepted and undertaken, these things lead to harm and suffering, said the Baddhiya. Then Buddha said, that is why Baddhiya, when we said, Baddhiya, do not go by oral tradition, do not go by lineage of teaching, do not go by hearsay, do not go by what is in the books, do not go by logical reasoning, do not go by inferential reasoning, do not go by reason, cogitation, by the acceptance of a view and after pondering it. Do not go by the mere fact that this is told by your teacher. So what are the grounds for making the decision? You have to consider yourself whether these things are wholesome or unwholesome, blameless or blameworthy, censored or praised by the wise, whether it leads to harm and suffering or not. Whether or not it leads to harm and suffering. And then Buddha says, but when you know for yourself, having contemplated in this manner, these things are unwholesome, these things are blameworthy, these things are censored by the wise, these things, if undertaken and practiced, lead to harm and suffering, then you should abandon them. So that is how you should, for yourself, on your own, understand this with wisdom. And then when you know for yourself these things are wholesome, these things are blameless, these things are praised by the wise, these things, if accepted and undertaken, lead to welfare and happiness, then you should live in accordance with them. Then you should take them up, cultivate and practice them, develop them within yourself, said the Buddha. So that is with regard to those four things. Then Buddha says, what do you think, Baddhiya, when non-greed arises in a person? Is it for his welfare or for his harm? What do
Welfare.
you think? Non-greed.
Welfare.
It says, Baddhiya, a person without greed, not overcome by greed, his mind not obsessed by it, does not destroy life. He does not steal. He does not engage in sexual misconduct. He does not lie. Nor does he encourage anyone to do these things. Why? There is no greed in his mind. Think of arahants, would they ever engage in these things? No. What do you think about the when non-hatred is there in a person? No hate. When there is non-hatred, that means what? A mind with loving kindness. Would such a person steal, kill, engage in sexual misconduct or lie? Or encourage anyone to do that? No. Why? He has a mind of non-hatred, a mind possessing, imbued in loving kindness. Then Buddha said, what do you think about if a person has non-delusion? Non-delusion means he's got right view, no wrong views he thinking. So a person with right view, he would not steal, kill living beings, engage in sexual misconduct or lie. Because why? A person possessing right view, he know. He's got this, he said the tenfold right view, the mundane right view. And he knows there is what is given, what is offered, what is sacrificed, there are merits in that. There are fruits and results of good and bad actions. He believes in the good and bad karma. Therefore, he would not kill, steal, engage in sexual misconduct, or lie, because he knows if I do this evil deed, then there will be the consequences I have to suffer. Because he always also believes in this life and next life. And he believes there are special people, mother and father. Would they kill their parents over a mobile phone? Or a woman, a lady? No, never. Why? They know there is mother and father. They are special. And there are the consequences, the repercussions of your actions. They know that. There are spontaneously reborn beings. They believe in the hell worlds. There you have spontaneously been born beings. Then the ghost worlds, you believe in them. And you fear to be reborn in those bad destinations. Why? Because of your right view. Then you believe that there are contemplatives and brahmins who, faring lightly and practicing lightly, proclaim the world, and they have realized the world, like the Buddha, the Arahant, they realized these teachings, and they taught us this is the nature of the world. You believe in that, because why? You have right view. So therefore you refrain from doing evil deeds. You abandon the unwholesome. So such a person possessing right view will not do those bad deeds. Then Buddha says, now unvengefulness, a person without vengeance. That means a forgiving person, no? You harm him, he will not try to retaliate. He will forgive you. He will let go. Such a person. He would never steal. He would never kill, engage in sexual misconduct, lie, or promote it. He is forgiving, unvengeful character. So in this way, these things would ask, what do you think about are these things wholesome or unwholesome? They are wholesome,
Wholesome.
Bhante. Blameworthy or blameless? Blameless, Bhante.
Blameless.
Censored or praised by the wise? Praised by the wise, Bhante. Accepted and undertaken, do they lead to welfare or happiness? Indeed, they lead to welfare and happiness. So these are the things. Then Buddha said, Baddhiya, that is why I said, do not go by tradition. Like the things we discussed, do not go by oral tradition. Do not go by what is in the books, by just the gossip or the teachings or the logical reasoning, inferential cognitive reasoning, reason cogitation, or just because it's a view that fits your thought process. So, but just because the teacher told you, but there has to be your own investigation and see whether it is a good thing, is bad or good, wholesome, unwholesome, blameworthy or praiseworthy, whether it leads to harm or suffering. So you have the choice. You have to decide. Then Buddha says, Baddhiya, the good persons in the world encourage their disciples in this way. How? Come, good man, you should constantly remove greed. Good persons means sappurisa. The good persons in the world encourage their disciples, come, good man, you should constantly remove greed. When you constantly remove greed, you will not do any action born of greed, whether by body, speech, or mind. That's what we have to do. Why? Buddha is a good person, a sappurisa, the Kalyana Mitra, the noble friend who encourages us. How? You should constantly remove greed. That's what we have to do. Constantly abandon greed when it arises in our mind. And then any action born of greed by body, speech, or mind, we will not do. Then Buddha say you should constantly remove hatred. When you constantly remove hatred, you will not do any action born of hatred, whether by body, speech, or mind. Likewise, you should constantly remove delusion. Then you will not do any act born of delusion by body, speech, or mind. Then you should constantly remove vengeance. Then, because your mind is free of vengeance, you will not commit any actions by body, speech, or mind that creates bad karma. When this was said, Baddhiya, the Lichavi, said to the Blessed One, the Baddhiya then says, excellent Master Gautama, excellent. Master Gautama has made the Dhamma clear in many ways, as though he were turning upright what had been overthrown, revealing what was hidden, showing the way to one who was lost, or holding up a lamp in the darkness so those with good eyesight can see forms. I now go for refuge to Master Gautama, to the Dhamma, the Sangha, and let Master Gautama consider me a lay follower who from today has gone for refuge for life. Likewise, he willingly go for refuge to the Buddha. But then Buddha says, now Baddhiya, did I tell you, come Baddhiya, be my disciple and I will be your teacher? Did I say something? That's what happens in other religions, no? What you call fishering, evangelism. Like they're always trying to draw you in. But Buddha asks, come Baddhiya, did I tell you that you should be my disciple or that I should be your teacher? Then Baddhi says, surely not, Bhante. Then Buddha says, but Baddhiya, though I speak in this way and declare in such a way, so this is how I talk, this is what I say. Some ascetics and brahmins untruthfully, baselessly, falsely, and wrongly misrepresent me when they say the ascetic Gautam is a magician who knows the converting magic by which he converts the disciples of teachers of other sects. So Buddha never converts others. It's not an evangelist. He does not act in this way. It's clear, no? Now see how articulate the Buddha is in answering his question. That is how the whole sutta began. So it's a beautiful answer where his wisdom is kindled, that of Baddhiya. Because Buddhas, they merely state the truth, the facts. So then you with your wisdom, you can consider the facts and you are free to make your own choice. So it's open to all. So then you can decide for yourself. The choice is not forced upon you. That is the beauty of this religion. For the wise, they can come ehipassika. They can come and see for yourself, open-eyed, through oneself, and realize for oneself. That is the beauty of the teachings of the Buddhas. Then Baddhiya says, excellent is that converting magic, Bhante. Good is that converting magic. If my beloved relatives and family members would be converted by this conversion, that will lead to their welfare and happiness for a long time. Not only myself, my family members and all relatives as well. It would be good for them as well. If all Khattiyas would be converted by this conversion. Khattiyas is the ruling, Satya, the ruling parties, kings and queens. If all Khattiyas, the Brahmins, the Vaishyas and Sudras, those are the four main castes that were at that time in India. If they were even to be converted by this conversion, that will lead to their welfare and happiness for a long time. So then Buddha said, so it is Baddhiya, so it is. Buddha agrees. If all Khattiyas would be converted by this conversion, all Vaishyas, Brahmins, Sudras were converted by this conversion, then it would be for their good. Because when you are converted by this conversion toward the abandoning of unwholesome qualities and the acquisition of wholesome qualities, that will lead to their welfare and happiness for a long time. So in this way, if a person understands this truth, he can abandon the unwholesome and develop the wholesome, which should in turn lead to happiness for a long time to come. Then Buddha goes on to say, if the world with its devas, Mara and Brahma, this population with its ascetics and Brahmins, its devas and humans, would be converted by this conversion toward the abandoning of unwholesome qualities and the acquisition of wholesome qualities, that will lead to the welfare and happiness for a long time. For any person in this world, the devas, Brahmas of the world, any person can benefit. Then Buddha, to further reiterate this fact, further reinforce this fact, he points to some nearby sala trees that were there. Buddha says, pointing to the sala trees, he says, if these great sal trees would be converted by this conversion toward the abandoning of unwholesome qualities and the acquisition of wholesome qualities, that will lead to the welfare and happiness even of these great sal trees for a long time. If they could choose, if these sal trees had the choice and they could choose, even they would stand to benefit. Buddha says, how much more than for a human being? So see the power of the Buddha's words, how definitive are his words, and the confidence he has in his teaching. So that if the sal trees chose to abandon the defilements, even they would stand to benefit from it. So what of a human being? So this is the reason we should learn the teachings of the Buddha. That's the whole point of the teaching. What? to abandon the defilements and develop the wholesome. So just memorizing what we learned today does not help. So you could know all the suttas, but when greed arises, you give in to that. When anger arises, you give in. Then the whole purpose is lost. That's not the purpose of knowing the teachings. Why? You had to put it into practice and gradually purify your mind. It requires a lot of patience, endurance, commitment. But this Dhamma, if you practice, definitely you can reap the benefits because it's so very true, something you can actually experience for yourself because it's all, as you can see, it's open for anyone to see with wisdom. So in this way, therefore, you should be mindful first to recognize the states of mind, whether it's wholesome and unwholesome, the ability to discern and identify between the wholesome and unwholesome, that is a faculty of your wisdom. So mindfully, you see the defilement and with wisdom you identify, then you abandon. That is something you have to do. Because in the Sammaditthi Sutta, it is said, no, it all begins with what? Your skill to discern between the wholesome and the unwholesome. That is another way you describe, what right view. That is where you enter to the stream, the Noble Eightfold Path. So this is something you should nurture and develop. What? The skill to discern between the wholesome and unwholesome, to mindfully identify the state of your mind. And then you abandon with effort. So when you abandon the unwholesome, you cannot abandon the unwholesome unless you establish yourself within the wholesome. So to give up greed, you have to practice non-greed. To give up hatred, you have to practice loving kindness. You establish yourself in loving kindness and you abandon hatred. You establish yourself in right view, that is non-delusion, by abandoning delusion. You establish yourself in non-vengefulness by the nature of forgiving, by abandoning vengeance. So likewise, you have to firmly base yourself in the wholesome and abandon the unwholesome. And you should do this, why? Because you should have the honest determination to purify your mind. Sometimes we get calls from some practitioners, devotees, and they say, I am meditating, I am practicing loving kindness, or I am chanting Paritta daily. Is it good? So those are the questions there. Is it good or bad? Of course, it's good. So why are they calling up and asking? Like they are looking for credit. They want to like hear us say, like, it's good. They want to hear us praise them. But you have to understand this is not about gaining credit. This is something you have to do for yourself. Because you are the one who benefits. You are the one in peril. Because you are the one who is stuck in a samsaric journey. So there has to be honest commitment to the practice if you are to benefit from the teachings of the Buddha. So that is the Baddhiya Sutta. So may you all have the good fortune to develop these wholesome qualities and abandon the unwholesome and realize the Four Noble Truths. This Gautama Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, are there any questions? If there are questions, you can ask.
Bante, I have a question here.
Sorry?
Yeah, I have a question here, Bante. May I?
Okay.
Okay. Bante, you said that Buddha wanted us, first thing is to be mindful and to differentiate the wholesome versus the unwholesome. So it sounds very subjective, and many people nowadays, especially nowadays, they are misguided and they couldn't even tell the wholesome versus unwholesome. Some of the things that they're doing, especially young people, they are misguided and they thought that they're doing the right thing. Or even the older people, okay, the government people, because they thought that they have the right view. So Bante, my question is, how can you advise these people who cannot differentiate and they thought that they're doing the right thing and then creating more bad karmas and consequences?
So the question is how to make them understand.
Yes.
So the average person, how to make them understand.
So what
So
advice would
like,
you give?
yeah, the address, like what you have to do is to make them realize that they're actually putting themselves danger. And also so for every person, there are people that they care in life. No? For any person, whether good or bad, there are certain people who he cares for. So then if you make them realize by what they are doing, they're causing not only harm for himself, but also his or her loved ones, then that is like opening that you can something you can talk to, make him realize that you should not stop doing this. You should abandon this because you are going to cause great suffering to many people you love. Because a person might not care as much for himself because he's deluded at that moment, but he does care for his immediate family or sometime. So then therefore you have opening to make him realize, okay, you have to give this up, you have to stop because you are going to hurt their feelings, hurt their lives. So that is the way you can approach that person if he doesn't care much, if he's too stubborn to understand the damage he's doing to himself. And then hope for the best because everyone should have, like, each person is different, but you can also try. No, you can always try.